Welcome everyone to Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and this video is the second video in the animated battle map series for Shiloh. In the last video, Sherman was holding strong on the Union right, but the division to the east of him, under Benjamin Prentiss, was having trouble. Prentiss and Sherman had about a quarter-mile gap between their divisions, but it was the gap on Prentiss's left that would give him the most trouble. His entire division hadn't even gathered completely. Some of his troops had arrived the night before and some that morning. The units that opened the battle from that division had harassed the Confederate juggernaut approaching their position. Wood's brigade drove directly east through the south end of Ray Field as the rest of the corps swung north, and this caused the thinly defended Union line to buckle against the weight, and they took up a position closer to their encampment. But the terrain did not offer an advantage like that of Sherman's division. The Union troops could see for a greater distance in this sector, but that was the extent of their superiority. Prentiss scrambled to send more troops to strengthen his lines. Confederate bullets tore into his ranks, and he urgently sent messages to other division commanders to send what they could to his aid. A little after 8:30 a.m., confusion struck the Confederate ranks. According to Shaver, a unit in Wood's brigade panicked, causing the regiments from both brigades to fall back. But Wood insisted in his report that Shaver's men had been the first to break. Either way, the greenness of the Confederate army, many of whom had never seen battle, contributed to this kind of event happening all over the battlefield. The Confederates regrouped and pressed on against the Union line. Gladden's men ran into difficult terrain, and the 26th Alabama was forced to move to the right of the line to avoid the entanglement of the undergrowth. They would have to attack Miller's brigade and two batteries of artillery, the 5th Ohio Battery and the 1st Minnesota Battery, sitting astride the road. Because the field division was small for the batteries, one artilleryman stated they had to fight them within pistol range with only canister and quick-time shells. As the Confederates advanced, Prentiss rode over to Miller's brigade and told them to fire low, and when we shot, to be sure that we seen something to shoot at. For every Secesh that we killed, there would be one less to shoot at us. Gladden led his men into very close combat. Some soldiers stated, "We ran up near enough to be certain that our balls would reach them." Getting that close to the enemy came with heavy casualties, including Gladden himself, when a shell fragment hit his shoulder and nearly took off his left arm. A doctor would amputate his arm, but after being transported to Corinth, Gladden would pass away. Bragg's battle line appeared on the field in that sector, with Gibson and Jackson's brigades supporting Wood, Shaver, and Gladden, while Chalmers' brigade extended Gladden's right. This reinforcement would help relieve the pressure from Gladden's beleaguered troops. Chalmers ordered a left wheel to find the Union's flank and hopefully turn it. Unbeknownst to the Confederate brigadier, the 15th Michigan, guarding the flank, was horribly under strength due to a number of soldiers being sent to guard the equipment, but it was without ammunition as well. When its commander brought that up to Prentiss, the division commander stated, "Our bayonets ought to be good for something." The Michiganders could only watch as the Mississippians and Tennesseans unleashed a hail of lead into their ranks with no way to respond. It didn't take long for them to break. Chalmers' men continued on down the Union line, next coming in contact with the 18th Wisconsin. Chalmers ordered a charge, but only the 10th Mississippi heard the order and dashed against the 18th Wisconsin. Seeing their comrades on the move, the 9th and 7th Mississippi regiments followed, but the 5th Mississippi and 52nd Tennessee never heard an order, but would follow later. Now the Badgers were retreating. One Wisconsin soldier wrote in his diary, "We passed our encampment. I saw some breakfast cooked, ready for eating. Of course, I did not sit down, but ran up and took a pancake or biscuit. It served me for the day." Gladden and Shaver's brigades pressed Miller's regiments to its limits until it broke under the pressure, sending the blue-clad troops north towards Pittsburg Landing. As the Confederates advanced over the blood-soaked battlefield, a Tennessean commented over the casualties. "Some of them with their brains shot out, and 2 or 3 in a pile. Some had their limbs broken and begging to have their wounds dressed. Others cursing the man that wounded him, and some few was making peace with heaven." One Confederate, Sergeant George Dixon, was hit in the leg and was saved only by a gold piece he carried in his pocket. His sweetheart had given him the piece, and because it saved his life, he later had the bent coin inscribed, "Shiloh, April 6, 1862, my life preserver," and his initials GED. The coin was found nearly a century and a half later on Dixon's body inside the recovered submarine, the CSS Hunley. Peabody's men were still holding, but not for long. When Wood and Shaver advanced in a renewed attack, they too got scattered. Peabody tried desperately to reform his men. He had been hit 4 times in the hand, thigh, neck, and torso, but was still barking orders until a bullet slammed into his face just above his lips, killing him instantly. Some of Prentiss's men went at a dead run back to the landing, and some even attempted to cross the Tennessee River. One staff officer asked one of them why he was running. The soldier replied, "Because I can't fly." Many of the Union surgeons stayed with their patients in the newly abandoned camps. Confederate Brigadier General Thomas Hindman ordered those doctors to not be disturbed by the advancing rebels, and 2 rebel surgeons began dressing the wounds of both sides in the encampment. Confederates began to sit down and eat the prepared breakfast left by the Yankees. They read the personal letters from their sweethearts and in general plundered. Some reports had Confederates bayoneting the wounded or the sick in the hospital. Johnston himself approached the encampment and quickly got the army back in order. From the abandoned Union camps, Johnston formulated the plan that would have huge repercussions for the Confederates in this battle. He thought he had turned the Union's left flank. What he did not know was that there was more divisions to the east and northeast. Therefore, he ordered the men who had just broke Prentiss's line to advance to the northwest, hoping to sweep up the rest of the Union Army. As his men began their swing, this put pressure on Sherman's brigades and scattered them. Then Johnston realized his mistake. He quickly ordered the 2 brigades closest to him, Chalmers and Jackson's brigades, to follow General Jones Withers to the rear and then march back up the Bark Road. This created a huge gap in the Confederate line. He now had to order in the Reserve Corps under Breckinridge to fill that gap. Johnston's army was now awkwardly positioned with multiple weak points along the line. These weak points would play a significant role in the next sequence of events. The morning was passing away quickly, but there was much fighting left to do.
Historian, historian, where do you roam? Historian, historian, far, far from home. Half history will travel reads the card of a man, a professor with knowledge in the heartland. To educate the world is his mission. A professor of fortune is a man called historian. Historian.